Look at the key in your pocket. Turn it over. Run your thumb along the top edge, across that jagged line of peaks and valleys. It feels arbitrary, like a shape a machine picked at random. It isn't random. It's a number. A short numeric password cut into brass that you carry around in the open in front of strangers every single day. Count the valleys. Most house keys have 5 or 6. Each one is cut to a specific depth, and those depths aren't freehand. They come from a fixed list. Depth 1, depth 2, depth 3, each a precise fraction of a millimeter lower than the last. A locksmith doesn't really measure your key. He reads it. A 5-cut key with 6 possible depths is a 5-digit code written in base 6. So why does the lock care about depth? Because inside that little cylinder, there is a row of tiny brass pins standing in a line, each one pressed down by its own spring. And every pin is actually 2 pins stacked. The bottom one rests on your key. The top one sits above it, shoved down from the spring overhead. Running horizontally through the whole assembly is a seam, a circular gap between the part that turns and the part that doesn't. Locksmiths call it the shear line, and it is the entire secret of the object. When there is no key in the lock, the springs push every top pin down across that seam. They straddle it. The turning part is pinned to the fixed part, like a bolt through 2 plates, and nothing rotates. Slide your key in, and the peaks lift each pin stack, not by the same amount, by exactly the amount that cut specifies. High peak lifts high, deep valley lifts low. And if every single cut is correct, then every joint between the bottom pin and the top pin arrives at the shear line at the same instant. The pins don't unlock anything. They just get out of the way. That's it. That's the whole idea. Your key is not a command. It's a height-setting tool. And the correct answer isn't a shape. It's 5 or 6 numbers, arriving simultaneously. Now, here is the part that should bother you. This idea is not modern. It isn't even close to modern. In the ruins of the palace of Sargon II at Khorsabad, in what is now northern Iraq, archaeologists recovered the remains of a wooden lock roughly 2,700 years old. Inside it, a horizontal wooden bolt drilled with holes. Above the holes, loose wooden pegs that dropped in by gravity and jammed the bolt in place. To open it, you needed a wooden bar with pegs standing up from it in a matching pattern. You slid the bar into a channel cut in the bolt, lifted, and the pegs on your key pushed the pegs in the lock up and out of their holes. Then the bolt slid free. Same principle. Obstacles held in place by gravity instead of springs. A key that lifts rather than turns. Egyptian versions of the design are thought to be older still, though wood rots and the evidence thins out fast. But what survives is enough to say something strange. Thousands of years of metallurgy, mathematics, and industrial engineering later, the mechanism protecting your front door tonight is a refinement of a Bronze Age idea, not a replacement for it. Which raises an obvious question. If the pin lock was invented that early, what was everyone using in between? Mostly something worse. The Romans made keys from bronze and iron, some small enough to wear as finger rings, and they leaned heavily on a different trick: wards. A warded lock is packed with deliberate obstacles, ridges, plates, curved walls, arranged so that only a key with matching notches can rotate all the way around. It looks clever. It's terrible. Because you don't need a key that fits the obstacles. You need a key thin enough to miss them entirely. Skeleton keys aren't magic. They are ordinary keys with everything filed away except the small part that actually shifts the bolt. And that flaw sat quietly inside European locks, largely unfixed, for well over 1,000 years. The correction arrived in England in a rush. Robert Barron patented a double-acting lever lock in 1778, in which each lever had to be raised to a precise height, where lifting too high was just as wrong as not lifting enough. Joseph Bramah followed in 1784, with a lock so intricate that he mounted one in his London shop window with a printed challenge and a cash prize for anyone who could open it. Nobody did, for over 60 years. Then came 1851, the Great Exhibition in London, and an American locksmith named Alfred Charles Hobbs, who arrived to sell locks and instead started opening them. He picked the Chubb detector lock in front of witnesses. Then he went after the Brahma window challenge, worked at it across roughly 2 weeks, opened it, and took the prize. The British lock trade did not recover its confidence quickly. The whole affair became known as the Great Lock Controversy, and its lesson is still the uncomfortable one. A lock that has never been picked and a lock that cannot be picked are two completely different objects. 10 years after Hobbs, Linus Yale Jr. patented the thing in your pocket. Yale's real insight wasn't the pin tumbler. That was ancient. It was the packaging. He put the pins inside a small brass cylinder that could be dropped into any door, and he shrank the key from a heavy iron shaft into a flat sliver of metal with the code cut along one edge. Flat keys are cheap to stamp. Flat keys are cheap to copy. Flat keys fit in a pocket. The lock stopped being a commission. It became a product. And that is why every key-cutting machine you have ever seen works the same way. Your original clamps on one side, a blank clamps on the other. A blunt stylus traces along your peaks and valleys, while a spinning wheel carves the identical path into the blank. The machine never learns your number. It just copies a shape. So how secret is that number, really? In 2003, a computer security researcher named Matt Blaze published a paper on master-keyed locks, the kind used in offices, schools, and hotels. He showed that if you hold one ordinary key to one ordinary door, you can work out the building's master key by testing a single pin position at a time, using a small stack of cut blanks. Not by brute force, by solving each digit independently, which is precisely the weakness cryptographers spend their careers designing out of passwords. Around 2005, Dutch lock researchers at an organization called Tool publicized the bump key, a key cut to maximum depth at every position, tapped sharply so the impact throws all the top pins upward at once, and the cylinder catches them mid-air. And in 2008, computer scientists at the University of California, San Diego demonstrated software that could read the depths of a key straight out of a photograph, including one taken with a telephoto lens from across a courtyard, nearly 200 feet away. They called the system Sneaky. The key was never touched. It was simply seen. Which brings you back to the small metal object on the table. You would never write your bank password on a strip of brass and hand it to a valet. You would never let a stranger photograph it. You would never leave it lying face up in a cafe while you queued for coffee. You do all three, constantly, with this. The house key hasn't survived because it's unbreakable. It survived because copying it used to require a shop, a machine, a blank, and a reason. Every single one of those requirements is getting cheaper, and none of them were ever about the key being secret. Look at the key in your pocket. It isn't a piece of hardware. It's a 5-digit secret you have been shouting for years, protected by nothing but the cost of listening.